All right, welcome everybody to episode 24 of the Content Lab podcast. Today, we have a different guest that it was announced. It's just gonna be for a little bit. Christian had a family emergency, so he's gonna be he's gonna join us in like 5 to 10 minutes. I don't know. He's gonna be soon, but hey, we're joined by Alex Sroka. I guess he's gonna stay as a co-host after after Christian comes here. So Alex, thank you so much for joining us today
Yeah.
again.
Thanks, buddy. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Let's obviously we're waiting for Christian, but hey, we can start talking about this topic, right? Which mainly Christian's very good at this, so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get him on the pod talking specifically about lending clients, campaign work. That's his main focus, right? He most of the stuff that he does in the industry is just a lot of campaign work with really big brands. So he will be an excellent guest for this. But since we have you here, we can also talk about that. And I wanted to start with just kind of like your experience with lending clients, mainly whenever you started in the industry, like whenever you were brand new, how
Mhm.
you got to the point that you started like, reaching out to people and starting lending your first couple of clients.
Yeah. So I think like everybody in the space, like at the beginning, you just you take what you can get, and you're pretty scrappy for the most part. And there's a learning curve when you kind of enter the industry at that point. And by no means have I done the size of campaigns that Christian has been involved with, but when I've had to kind of go out and try and earn business, I have found, and I think Christian would probably echo this because I've learned a lot from him and yourself, is that oftentimes you almost have to articulate the value of what you bring to the table and how it's going to positively impact their business. Um, a lot of times when people would reach out or I'd connect with somebody, they say, "Hey, I need this, this, and this," and while it's definitely stuff that I could deliver, I think some of it is just to kind of come back to them and say, "Hey, that sounds great. Have you considered this? I think this would be meaningful, to your business, and these are the types of assets that I think would be helpful to help grow your business or give you the awareness that you're looking for." So I think as much sometimes as there's a certain level of knowledge that these brands have or these companies have, and oftentimes I think they'll reach out and um, they'll think they know what they are looking for, and some really know and understand and get it, and some aren't that way. And so you kind of have to sort of set those expectations. And like I said, I think Christian does a really good job of that, and people will be interested to hear about how he sets expectations for clients in terms of what he can deliver and how it's going to be helpful for them and their business. So
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And not that long ago, we were talking to some people about this topic about like lending clients and how specifically in our industry, in like the sports industry and sports that are pretty new, like CrossFit, it's been pretty tough for most freelancers, right? Because what I was telling that person is that I feel like it's a new sport, and a lot of the brands are new to in like the whole field of like having to hire media people
mhm.
and for content creators it's a new sport as well, because before 2019 it was mainly CrossFit Media, right? Like there wasn't any really like independent companies bringing their content creators to events. So for a lot of us, it's a newer thing, right? So people are just, I feel like they're just starting to figure it out, and some of the new brands don't really know how to go with it. So at the same time, we say like, oh, some of the brands don't really put value in our work, but I also feel like we got to understand that some of them just don't know,
Yeah.
right? It could
Mhm.
be one of the options, right? They just don't know better, and there's a lot of people offering them free work or very, let's say, like cheap work, right?
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, like I have 20 people in the DMs just offering, to work for $200 a day, and they pay their own travels and stuff. They pretty much just want to shoot,
Yeah.
right? So it's like I feel like that's what they're used to, and we have big brands like Tier coming into space that they're used to like big budget marketing and advertising. So they know, right? Like they find value in content creators, and they know like the work that we go through and how valuable it is for them. And those are the brands that are kind of like starting to set the tone to be like, hey, like we understand what's going on. um and at least that's in my personal experience. I don't know how you see this topic.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think the interesting thing about CrossFit is that everybody claims not to have a budget for the most part. You have people, like tiers and the nobles, and they get it and they don't haggle. Like there's certain they don't they understand the importance of the work that needs to be done, and they don't haggle about it. But there are a lot of brands that say we don't have a budget, and I would just say that I believe that maybe less than half the time. Everybody has a budget. It's where do they place the value of the money they're spending. And so, that's what needs to change within the industry. All these other sports, big professional sports, been around for a while. They obviously get it. They spend tons of money on content. And I realize the economics are a bit different there, but there's a reason why there are so many creators in the CrossFit space. It's because there's a lot of value there that we bring to the sport. At least I believe that. Without us, there's just less. It's being talked about less. It's being visualized less. It's being shared less. So we help fuel the sort of machine that CrossFit thrives on, and that's content. People wanting to see their favorite athletes, in their training behind the scenes, and that type of content that otherwise you're not going to get unless you're just at the CrossFit Games and it's a big spectacle or big event, which there's only a few of those kind of throughout the year. So I think it really is about where do people place the value? And if people value something, if a brand values something, they'll spend money on it. If it's travel, if it's product development, whatever that is. And clearly CrossFit is lagging in the space where brands, they may understand that there's some value there. They just don't place it high on their priority list. So they don't spend the money on it. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Christian has to say about the topic, because he's somebody that's been around other sports as well, right? He doesn't really do as much CrossFit.
Yeah.
It's kind of I'm not sure, but I think it's like a newer area for him.
Yeah, for sure.
He's been working mostly with like lifestyle brands and I think some skateboarding stuff,
I know he's done
um,
like UFC.
UFC, Nike,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that.
And
So it'll be very interesting. And I know he's pretty open about the topic, right? Like he was talking about he was posting some stories not that long ago about this. So it'll
mm-hmm.
be pretty cool to see his opinion about it. But let's bring it back to landing some clients for you specifically.
Yeah.
When you first got started, how was the process? Obviously, like we all got to start somewhere. So, you know, kind of like let's talk about after the process that you were kind of established, right, in the industry, and you were starting to reach out to clients with a portfolio. What was your the method that you found more useful?
I think for me, there's a couple of ways I've gone about it. First would just be the classic, making connections with people on social media, primarily Instagram, and then if I've recognized that there's an opportunity that exists for whatever reason, it would just be reaching out to them and being like, hey, have you thought about this, that, or the other? Have you thought about doing some brand work? And so that's sort of like the low hanging fruit, and then other areas have really just been like the in-person opportunities to network with people, whether that's attending events or dropping into different gyms or like in the Chicago area, taking advantage of the community stuff that's going on in your like for you in Pensacola or for me in Chicago, wherever you kind of live, like going into those things and developing relationships and kind of establishing a little bit of trust with the client, and then kind of working your way in and saying, hey, I'm a content creator and I'd love to work with you and your brand if that's something you need in the future. And people kind of store you away. And I've been in positions where, there was a brand that I shot for, a chain of fitness studios in Chicago. There he is.
Yo, can you hear me?
The man.
Let's see. Almost there, guys. 1 sec.
But just to
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Now you're muted.
Okay, got it.
There you go. There you go. Just to finish the thought real quick before Christian, you hop in, but there's a client in Chicago I'd worked with for a number of years, and then one of their trainers broke off and started their own fitness studio, and I had a good relationship with that person, and so they inevitably reached out when they needed to kind of help market their new gym. And so a lot of it's just relationship building. And then when people trust you and they do their own thing or they move on to new positions, they'll keep you in mind. And And so I think just establishing trust is important to landing new clients.
Absolutely. Give me a second. I'm changing Christian's handle. All right, Christian. Finally, we have you. We have you here. We were waiting for you. So welcome everybody to episode 24 with Christian Florez, and my co-host for the night. It's gonna be Alex Sroka.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it, boys. Christian, so we're talking about some things that we're gonna get more into it after you start giving us your thoughts on it. Pretty much, we're talking about the struggle of some freelancers, specifically in the CrossFit space, to find good, or I guess um, jobs that are worth it for the amount of work that we do, or the time that we spend. And we know that you're pretty open about the topic, and you talk about it a lot in your stories, and it's something that a lot of people have given you a lot of positive feedback about too. um, but do you want to start with that topic, or you want to start with something different?
Yeah, that works.
All right, let's do it. All right, so give us your opinion about it.
Yeah. It's funny. Alex and I have been talking about this pretty consistently for the past week. It just seems to be like the hot topic at the moment. I think the timing has a lot to do with, the end of the CrossFit season came in, the games just ended. And this is kind of like the time where we all get to assess our brands, and see, where we could have done better, how it looked this year, our takeaways, what we liked and didn't like. And, I think every business owner has to go through that to kind of experience, or know rather, like what it is that they want for themselves. There's a component to this business that you can't remove, which is just experience and time, I'm not any expert by any means, but I've been doing this for a amount of years now. And so when it comes to CrossFit specifically, I would consider myself fairly new to the space. I just started working in CrossFit about a year and a half ago. Prior to that, I come from a multitude of different athletic industries. So I kind of have that platform to compare and contrast, right? Like, this is what my experience was here, and this is what I experienced here. First thing is, with CrossFit, it's very dear to people's hearts. So you kind of have to be careful with what you say, because people take everything personally. Because it's embedded in the community, right? The media is people who shoot media are also athletes. They're also training. They're also heavily involved in what's going on. Even people's personal lives, their businesses, what's going on behind the scenes. It's all, you can make a reality TV show out of the CrossFit industry, to be honest. And so it's kind of hard to separate the two, but I feel like at this point it's kind of necessary. What I'm noticing is we're kind of at this pinnacle where consistently across the board, a lot of content creators are getting frustrated. They're getting frustrated because they've now gotten their feet wet long enough to experience the downsides of maybe the actions they've taken prior, or just the things they didn't like, based off of what their experience was this past year or past 2 years. I think one of the common things that we all experience is eventually we get to a place of frustration because the amount of effort that we put in isn't reciprocated on the other end, or the outcome is just not what we desired, right? We kind of put 300% in, and then our outcome's 50, right? And so we kind of have to pay attention to that. And so, in my experience right now, I feel like it's very important to start kind of talking about this openly. It's kind of like an elephant in the room for a while now. People just it's every time I talk to someone in private, they agree, but it's never talked about publicly, which I think is a problem.
Yeah.
But they don't want to, because they don't want retribution.
Right. And that's a problem.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
I agree.
And that's because, again, business owners are also so involved in the industry. Everyone is involved in the industry. So it's weird. You have to be careful who you're talking to, because that person is friends with this person, and they trained that person, and they were part of this team, or they shot for that person. It's just everyone's connected. For me, I consider myself a bit on the outskirt, which that is intentional. Business is business, and I do CrossFit personally on the side, and that's kind of it. I don't really get too involved because it gets sticky, and I see it, and it's really hard to eventually get to that place, and I'm sure Alex has experience with this. We're talking about this, where because you're so involved, it's hard to take a step back and really ask what it is that you need, And I think that's a common thing that I've heard from a multitude of people.
Sure. And people are also scared to like the thought that some of the brands are gonna say no to their quote, right? Like they just want to be so involved in the industry. They love CrossFit. They want to shoot. And I don't know, X brand, they just ask them, hey, how much would you charge us to shoot every day? And they're gonna be like, some of them are like, I really want to go. If I charge them, I don't know, 1,200 a day, they might think it's too much.
Right.
But I don't want to like lowball myself. And then, they, at the end of the day, they are just doing that, right? Like they're just putting a very low price on their work. And then, I mean, obviously that's not gonna help that's not gonna help the rest of the industry. It's just gonna set a lower standard. And I remember which episode I was talking about. I was talking about this, and it might have been the first episode of the CrossFit Games, the one that we did like pre CrossFit Games. And I said it will be awesome if we can just make like a huge group, like all the content creators, and just kind of like team up and be like, listen, this is an industry standard. We're not gonna charge less than $1,200 if a day, if it's gonna be, like this amount of work. And we have like a, like an industry standard. Like we cannot charge less than this, because at the end of the day, like nobody's gonna do it, right? So brands gotta be like, okay, like this is it, like this is the standard that they set. Obviously it's gonna be impossible to do it, but just talking about this and just bringing more awareness, right? It's gonna be, it's gonna help. And I think that just us talking about this and people listening, and hopefully like people like just absorbing some of the content that we're talking about, they're gonna be like, okay, like we gotta make some changes. And at the same time, I'm not blaming any brands. I'm not blaming any specific creators. It's just kind of like what some people are used to, and some people don't know better, right? So it's it's a tough topic, because some people, as you said, like they don't like to talk about it. They don't want to be like the one that's like, oh, like they're talking crap about the industry and stuff. But at the same time, we're not saying anything wrong about the industry. Right. If we're still involved in the industry, because we're passionate about it, we love it. As I tell Alex all the time, and like everybody that knows me, this, like the CrossFit industry is not where I make my living. It's just what I really like doing. I'm passionate about it and I love doing it, right? But I do a lot of different things, but there's something about shooting specific CrossFit that really, like makes me very passionate about it, and that's why I do it.
Yeah, I think if you really think about it, like worst case scenario, right? You talk about these issues publicly, and we're not saying, go and start calling out people by name, right? But like, what's the worst thing that can be said about you if you do that on the other end? Oh, he asked his value. Screw him. Like, what are they going to say? You're not ripping on the brands. You're not talking about their logos. You're not talking about people's shoes. Like you're just talking about the fact that you asked for a rate that you quote at standard wise, just across the board, and they tried to lowball you, or they went to someone cheaper. That's all we're talking about here. So like, there really shouldn't be the fear there, and the fact that there is also a big problem. Like the fact that it's so dramatized, like, and again, this is where me having been in other industries, it's honestly, it's kind of shocking to experience this, because like you just don't deal with this. Like this isn't something that is common, I think, when you get into spaces like, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that CrossFit's so young, comparatively when it comes to business. Like the first, I want to say like 8 years of it, like there was a large viewership or whatnot, but when it comes to like the sponsors getting involved, the event spaces, just when money really got involved in CrossFit, that's young, that's fairly new. You go to other industries where you're actually dealing with other professional athletes, anything from like the NFL to the NBA to the UFC, and in that realm in general, like brands aren't nickel and diming you. They're not negotiating back and forth. I was telling Alex this, like for me, there's two perspectives to have as a brand. Top tier brands will look at what they need and they ask themselves, who's the best person for this job? We'll pay what we need to pay to get the job done. The brands that we experience here in the CrossFit space is, who can we get the cheapest, and hopefully they can pull it off. Mm-hmm. Which is it's such a low quality way of looking at it overall in your brand. And it shows, like for me, if I was the owner of this brand, like I'm looking for best all the time, right? Like my investment should be all in always, right? Like the most successful
Yeah.
Nike, right? They almost went bankrupt. Like they put every dime they have into it. And I think it also has a big thing to do with allocation. Like they just don't see the media side of things because again, it's young as a priority. They don't think it's as important as everything else that they're paying for. Because it's not like the budgets don't exist. We've been around the block. Like I know they're there. We all know they're there. We see what they're spending money on. We know what those booths cost at the events. We're not dumb. You know, like we know all that stuff, all the sponsorships, the flights, all that stuff is expensive. And really what keeps it all running for them, because how do you target different demographics that are outside of the areas that you're in? It's e-commerce, it's online, which is media. It's us, it's the marketing industry. We're the ones creating the content that make you the money. Without this industry, you don't have ads. You don't have ads, you don't have dollars. Like there's just like it's A and B equals C. Like, and this stuff is just common sense, but they still like all right, well, and honestly, it's a double-sided coin. Like the brands are to blame as much as the creators are to blame, because again, we're okay with taking pennies on the dollar just to have an experience, right? At the CrossFit Games, I can't even tell you how many people shot for free or for a couple $100 just to say they went and shot at the CrossFit Games. Like it was such a big deal, which I get it. Like if you're a big CrossFit fanatic, it's really cool to be there. But like for me, bro, like I got a family to support, like, and that was a long time. You guys were out there for like a week, you know, like that's
it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of stress, and it's a lot of money those companies made, right? They made a hell of a lot of money, and some of these people walked away in the hole. They went there and left with less money than when they got there.
Yeah,
like that should never happen.
Even getting paid, you can get on the whole, because I mean, think about like how much money you're gonna spend in hotels, how much money you're gonna spend in just your plane ticket, food, because you gotta eat. And some people don't think about that. They're like, oh yeah, I can charge him, I'll charge him $350 a day and then I'll pay my expenses, and then you're $2,000 in the hole. Because you don't think about that. And you were before you go with it, I was gonna say, you also mentioned that they should be shopping for the best, or like whatever fits their brand more. But at the same time, I feel like not most, some of the brands don't know what is good and what's not, right? Because they don't have an actual like a, I don't know, like a media director, somebody creative that knows exactly like what's the difference from something quality to not quality.
Some brands do.
Yes.
Some brands do. Yeah, absolutely.
Even those people in those positions are bad.
But some brands don't, and the person that's shopping, it could be, I don't know, like the assistant of the owner, or even the owner sometimes is the one like hitting on, like in the DMs, like, hey, can you shoot this for us? And they just see like a video of somebody doing snatch, and they don't know it's like messed up. They just see it and it looks good. They're like, oh yeah, sure. Because they don't know, like they don't see content as like we do. Like when I see a video, I'm focusing on all the details. I'm focusing about motion blur, about the sound effects, about the exposure, all these things that they have no idea, right? So they don't know what's actual quality, what's not quality when it's a brand that don't have like a media director or somebody like a creative director, right?
Yeah, let's kind of call it for what it is, though. It's just like they're not putting their all into it. I'm just gonna call it like bluntly, like, and let me give you a prime example. Us as content creators, when we picked up a camera and we wanted to get good at it, what did we do? We researched it, right? We studied what needed to be done to be good at what we do. This is why we are where we are in our respective businesses. Now, as a CEO, as a business owner, I mean, these are basics: marketing, sales, AdSense. Like you just kind of know what makes the entire pie of a business. So if you missed one of the massive chunks of a brand, which is marketing, media, content, this is not new. This isn't like a new generation thing. This has existed since the beginning of time. There's always been billboards and bus stops and you name it. And back then they were paying way more now than companies are having to pay today, right? And like, I'm a big, for example, I always use Noble as an example for what it looks like when they want to level up. What did they do? They studied other industries. They looked at what other brands and other industries were doing, and they implemented that. This is why I would say I consider them a pioneer in the CrossFit space. Regardless of how you feel about the brand or products or whatever it is, you can't knock on their content. They pioneered that way of, keeping things at such a high caliber. And I think that's so important for people to pay attention to. Like if they're putting media at the bottom tier of what's important to their brand, like they just didn't put enough hours in. They got way too ahead of themselves. They wanted to launch a brand. They wanted to start sponsoring athletes right from the get-go and do all this. They didn't do enough, just researching of what needs to be done in order to have a successful brand long term. And so they jumped the gun on. So that's why we get lowballed, and we're not seen as a priority. It's like, oh, well, I could just have someone do this, in exchange or on an iPhone, or I can just. How many brands do we know that just repost content? Like you might get engagement on it, but dude, sale conversions are going to be way different. And not only that, professionalism. Like for me, when I see a brand that's just a repost page, all the content's reposted from other people that was created, like you're a low quality company because you don't even have a budget for marketing. And that's a big red flag for me. As a content creator, I will never work with that. If I see that, it's a run, right? Because I am going to get treated like scum. You know what I mean? Like that's just not, and that should say a lot to the brand. Like, man, like what is it about what we're doing that makes content creators want to run away from us? But and that's the part to me. It's like, I get everyone's where they're at, but at some point you got to kind of take accountability, for where your company is and not knowing the entirety of what's needed in order to keep leveling up.
Yeah. And what Jonathan says here, it's pretty interesting. He says, do you think people who hire you in CrossFit try to get you to volunteer or lowball you because CrossFit has been a volunteer culture since the beginning? And I mean, I didn't think about it that way, but it's kind of true. I'm not talking about specifically CrossFit Media because I feel like CrossFit Media has always had a high level of creators involved, right? Like it's always been really good since the beginning. I feel like the documentaries, the photos that we've seen since, I don't know, early days, it's been good, right? And much better than a lot of the sports. Like I don't remember seeing like a documentary like the production value that we have it in CrossFit in like all our sports, right? Which is, it's pretty cool. It's a new sport and they're putting a lot of value. But when we're talking about like local competitions and even like, some good competitions, a little bigger and local, it's true. Like it's always been a volunteer culture when it comes to the judges, head judges sometimes too. And he says like many of the coaches don't get paid either. So I don't know, it could be something that it's also like affecting the industry because it's just such a like a volunteer culture. That's,
I to piggyback off of that, I think it's not relegated to just the content side of things. As an example, my brother-in-law just had to close his CrossFit gym here in the western suburbs of Chicago because he literally couldn't staff the gym because, you like people want to get paid, but it just all falls back to this. Nobody's generating enough revenue and to pay the coaches, to pay for content or to do marketing. Like how does that going to get fixed? Like he had to close a gym because he couldn't staff it. Brands don't invest in the content side of things. Like where is the money just all going into like making like inventory if you're a brand? Like
there's a blueprint that I think no matter what industry of business you're in can be applied to everything. Mm-hmm. And when you see someone be successful at something, what they do is they show you it can be done.
Yeah.
There's a lot of successful CrossFit gyms. But that's really all I got to say. Like there's ways of doing things. Now, of course, like it can be situational, whatever. They have a bigger investment early on or whatever it is, but it can be done, right? And so to get back to the volunteer thing, like that made sense with people who just show up and volunteer to, do work. We put thousands of dollars into our business before we even show up. So it's not even close to relevant. Like find me a volunteer that decked themselves out in thousands of dollars worth of gear before they went and volunteered to be a judge. Like it's just not a thing. So I get that, but it's a cop out 100%. They're not ignorant. Like they know what they're doing. They know that there's a transactional component to this, which is you give me your services and we'll give you ours, right? Like it's always been there. And again, it's also very outdated. I mean, look how many years we have now where brands have been involved in this. Like they're not rookies to the fact that the volunteering component is, and again, and even with that, even with volunteering, I mean, we're seeing how that's also become an issue. You know, Hillerfit acknowledges this constantly, right? Like it's become an issue with having volunteer judges because when you don't value something unless you put something into it, right? And so they're going to get a certain level with people that just like don't have the experience or they went for free, right? They're going to, the people that get trained, the people that get paid, they're going to take that seriously because there's money involved. You're going to be a lot more on point about it, you know? So like it was, I think that was cool for a time. It built the platform, it built the stage for what it is. But I mean that way of thinking is so far gone. Like if people still try to use that as an excuse, like they're living in caveman times, you know?
Yeah. I mean,
Do you
true.
think, what do you do in a situation? I know you like a situation you find yourselves in where, you know, somebody like myself who's done stuff in the past for cheap with somebody sort of set that precedent, either done it for free or done it for very little. And, you know, then you kind of have that aha moment, which I think I've had a little, you know, recently where I'm like, hey, you know, like this does a disservice to myself. It does a disservice to my colleagues to, you know, be this price point. And then you go back to somebody who you've worked with and you tell them what it's going to cost to do a project, and they're like, whoa, this is way higher than what you've done in the past. Like, how do you fix that as an individual? Because that perception now has become reality in the mind of the person who you've worked with.
Yeah. Sticking to your guns. There's always going to be scarcity. Like people, you know, people have to walk through it. It's kind of the beginning stages of business. You have a period of time where it's all about scarcity. Like you just take the job because you want the money. It's a paycheck, right? That's the difference between like people who just kind of pick up a camera and shoot whatever to people who have a niche, right? People who niche down in something. They didn't start there. They usually curate their brand to beat that, right? That came with experience. So there's always going to be scarcity. There's always going to be people that are going to do, you know, a big job for a couple $100. Um, you can't completely, you know, eliminate that. But I think there's also you'll be very hard pressed to find someone that can create top tier valued content who's putting themselves down here budget wise. It's very hard to find, right? If you just look at some of the names that we all know in the CrossFit space that shoot media, go ask, you know, the Mayhem Media team to shoot, you know, at an event for $400. It's comical, right? Like not only is it's comical, it's like it's disrespectful. Like how dare you? You know, like what do you see when you look at me? Like, do I have a free sign on my chest? Like I don't understand what they think when they do that. And then it's like, and then they see it as some sort of like business move. No, it's just pure disrespect, you know. And then we validate it by taking it. So it's always going to be a two-sided coin. But I think at some point people get to that place in their business where they're like, you know, they don't understand why they're not breaking, you know, six figures or why they're not even full-time media, right? Like this is their passion, this is what they want to do, but they have a full-time job, and they don't understand why they can't make money off of it. And that's where the reassessment comes in. Like, man, what do I have to do that? You know, and then this is where people who have been there, you know, like myself, who talks about this constantly, I'm telling you, like, these are the things that need to be done personally to break that plateau that you're hitting, you know, because until then you're going to keep nickel and diming yourself and you're never going to hit that point where it's sustainable. And even if you do, but you're taking every little job, there's a thing called burnout, you know. So you have to find a way to juggle that, to do it to where, you know, if you're supporting your family, but at the same time, it's not like freaking slave labor, you know, like you're enjoying what you do and you make good money off of it and the brand is happy.
Yeah, and what I was telling Alex is that you gotta be okay with saying no. If you know, if you say yourself, if you say your value and you know you do good work and you know you can provide a lot of like, you know, valuable content for that company and that you can make them money with your content. You gotta be okay with saying no if they're like, oh sorry, it's too expensive. Can you go a little lower? Just no, right? Like I can. That's what I think I'm worth. If you don't think I'm worth it, you're just not the right client for me. We're not a good fit. You know, like I want to work with people that understand and they're like, oh, you're charging me, I don't know, $30,000 for this project. Okay, I understand that's why you're worth it. And those are going to be the best. You're going to have the best experiences with that type of client. The client that understand that you're worth that amount of money and they're willing to pay it with no questions asked. And what I was telling you yesterday, Alex, um, you got to be okay with saying no. And if you never say no, your yes means nothing, right? If you're always saying yes, yes, yes to everything, what's your yes, right? It means nothing. You gotta that, and that just completely, when I started like thinking about that, just having that mentality of like, I know I'm very, like, I know my work can make a huge impact on some brands. I'm just not gonna work for this amount of money. This is my price. If you're willing to match it, like, perfect, let's work together. The moment I started like saying no to jobs and just choosing being more thoughtful of like the companies I'm gonna work with, the clients I'm gonna work with, I feel like, everything just, it was like everything just step up. I started, getting more jobs that I enjoyed. I started liking my just my work more. I felt more passionate about things, even more creative, because it's like you're like excited to work with the brand and with the client, because like they appreciate what you do, and you know you both want to succeed, and you have the same expectations.
Yeah, and I think that's a good transition into, kind of like the main topic, right? Which is like how to land those clients. Like it's all about what you just talked about, like assessing what best fits in the realm of your respective brand, and
Mhm.
seeing what's going to pay off the best, right? Like this is where I've over time had to gauge it. Like I kind of know now. I have like my checklist of brands to avoid, red flags to look out for, but a number that I'll never go under. Like there's a lot of things that I look at now because I've been in so many negative situations that I now do everything in my power to avoid it. Right? Like I want a clean relationship. Um, a lot of the times when you get in sticky messes, a big portion of that was of your own doing. You kind of knew better, but you took it anyway. The price was kind of low, but you kind of wanted the job. There's a lot of things that like go into that. And if you really want to have like a good quality client, then you need to put yourself at that level, and you need to go for the brands that operate at a certain level of professionalism, right? Like I do when I'm looking at a company, I'm vetting it, right? I'm looking at all their social media feeds, I'm looking at their website, I'm doing as much research as I can on them before even moving forward, to know that like this isn't going to be like something that every project changes budget, or like they're going to ask for more the second I pull out my camera, right? Like we agree to this, and the second that things come up, hey, can you do this too? Hey, what about this? Hey, you know what I mean? Like all that kind of stuff, you kind of you learn through experience, but eventually you have to kind of have a template for what it is you're going to accept and the things that you just won't. And the hardest thing to do is say no to something that, I mean, bro, I've turned down clients that were offering a big chunk of change, but I knew, one, the level of difficulty was too much, how difficult the client was too much, or there was too many red flags, that it was like, yeah, I would pay well, but I've been there. I've taken the big clients where it's like it paid well, and man, I was miserable. Like I
Mm.
would have been better off just saying no. Like, hey, let me just give you the money back because this is nonsense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
And so, yeah,
I've experienced that with weddings too. When the couple is not gonna be a good fit, and gosh, like I know it's gonna be good money, but I would rather not do it. I'm like, hey, sorry, I think we're just not a good fit.
right.
It's tough, but that's how it works. And as you said, like, there is a burnout part of it, right? Like, if you keep taking jobs that you're not gonna enjoy, and it's gonna be hard on you, like, at the end of the day, you're gonna burn out, because you're just gonna be just working like that type of jobs that you are not happy throughout the whole shoot, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
That's
yeah,
fine, man.
and kind of
That's
like changing topics back to what we're talking about now, thinking about weddings. I feel like the wedding standard for pricing is very set for each area. Like, I remember when I was getting started in the industry, one of the guys that I was like talking to, like, yo, like, I'm trying to get more started, like more involved in weddings and stuff. He's like, okay, but how much are you planning on charging? I'm like, hey, I don't know, like $2,000. And he's like, listen, dude, do not charge less than $2,800 if you're gonna do a full wedding. Like, don't do it. I'm like, why? Just don't do it. Nobody charges that. You don't want to be the super cheap photographer or videographer. You're gonna mess everybody. Like, he was just straightforward. Like, do not do it. You'll be fine. I'm like, all right. Do you imagine if that happens in the CrossFit industry? Like, somebody just calling you like, how much do you charge that brand again? Oh, $500 for the day. No, dude, listen, do not charge less than 1,500. Like, that will just
I
change things completely, right?
I
Because
just
everybody's gonna like
Mhm.
your mentality is gonna be like, oh shit, like nobody's charging less than $3,000 for the wedding. Like, why would I be the cheapest person out there? You know?
Well, the more we talk about it as a group, like in this setting, and people listen, and we all talk to each other offline, I think that you can have that impact. Like, yeah, there's a quality threshold of creators, I think, and we're able to command a certain level of, what we're able to charge. But, it is interesting. I just had a very similar conversation with somebody where, um, you know, it was something that was, I put a bid in for. It was turned down because it was too expensive. And I knew they were going to go right to this next person. So I reached out to them and I'm like, hey, look, I said, this is not about me, but I said, do not charge a low amount just to get this gig, because then you'll be the low price person and they'll come to you because they know you're cheap every time. And
Yep.
this person I know is much like Christian, like where they rely on these gigs to make a living, to pay rent, put food on the table. And so that's really the only way. Like, that communication needs to happen. Otherwise, it's going to be the same thing. They'll just run to, the floor needs to be raised.
Yeah.
There should be no
And
ceiling, but
yeah.
the floor needs to be raised.
And at the same time, I understand people are just getting started in the industry. They have no portfolio, no experience, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Hey, I just want to be a part of your competition." Like, that's fine, because we
Mhm.
all did at one point, right? Like,
Yeah.
when I first started, I volunteered for a competition, right? Like, it's okay because you're just trying to get, you know, involved, get some experience, get your portfolio going. But I mean, we're mainly talking about, once somebody's pre-established. But let's talk about what we're actually gonna talk on this podcast. We kind of like got started in a different topic. So, Christian, let's talk about lending clients. What's your I don't even know how to like start it, because there's so many different things that we can talk about, like lending clients. But I will say, what's your method, or the method that works for you when it comes to like reaching out to clients when they ask you for pricing, when they go with like, hey, can you show me your portfolio? What's your previous experience, and how you find these clients, right? Because as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, before you join, you've worked with huge brands like UFC, with Nike, with um, Tier X Endurance, like a bunch of Ruka too, RVCA, Ruka, and yeah, like you have experience with those brands. So just talk to us about that process.
Yeah, I think the first thing that's important is to assess where the value is, right? So, like when you talk about weddings, the reason why the price is pretty set is because the deliverables are pretty set. You're not really going to get asked something that 99% of people aren't also getting asked for, right? Like you kind of already know going into what the deliverables are going to be. Some might ask for a couple things that are nuanced here and there, right? Some small gray areas, but for the most part, it's very consistent across the board. You start jumping into CrossFit, there's tons of different spaces now. Now we're talking, there's the event space, which is a world of its own. And then there's the stuff that brands have to do when events aren't happening to stay afloat. And so for me, like I noticed very early on, events it's not a sustainable component to the business. It's you if you're not shooting the big ones, which are very few and far between throughout the year, brands aren't going to value those, unless you're, and again, this is where it's tiers to it, right? You get someone that's just starting out and they want to shoot some local bash at some local gym, solid, do you? We're talking about people that are trying to make a living at a certain caliber. Those events aren't going to make you a lot of money because these are small budget affiliates that can't really afford to be paying you $3,000 for an event that's probably how much they made. So like event spaces are really hard to juggle. It's all the work that happens outside of it. And so with that, for me, is what, we emphasize is campaign work. It's if you have a product, I need to create content for a brand that helps them sell it, right? Where's the ROI going to come from? And there's also a standard there, right? If you take a look at every brand across the board that operates at a certain level, there's the basics. They have studio content, right? They need to showcase their products on their website. They have, if we're just talking fitness here, they have, flat lay work where whether it's like apparel or water bottles or food or whatever it is, they need content that just emphasizes that. Then they need content where it shows whatever they're selling being used in action, right? Whether it's a backpack, a shoe, whatever. And so there's a multitude of components that I would say creates the campaign pie, right? It's really hard to do well as a brand if you omit one of those slices. The pie, all he's come there to bring the brand entirely together, right? So like when you had pulled up Noble, just keep using them as an example because it's easy and everyone knows them. You'll see like they have their content that's the shoe by itself in the studio, right? Then they have their long form story videos that they do of their athletes. Whenever they bring someone on or they're moving into a new industry, they'll have kind of a voiceover narration of an athlete in the zone, right? Something that makes you emotionally attached to the brand, because that's a huge component. If you can't tell a story and you can't get your viewership to emotionally attach to the brand, it's really hard to sell a product. That's the glue that kind of brings it all together. And then they have the photography side of it, right? Which is action content and lifestyle content. That's a picture of action where someone's golfing in real time, but then they'll have content where they're just kind of standing around wearing the shoe, right? There's a multitude and they have to be divided as such. A lot of brands, unfortunately, aren't familiar with this methodology. Top tier companies are. This isn't new to them. This is why they know what they want and they pay top dollar for it. They know it works. They know this translates. But most brands, this is where, the question comes in. They approach you and they say, or you approach them and you want to work with them and they ask you like, what do you have to offer? What is it that you want? And then you're stumped. Oh, like I can make this video for you. Well, a video is not going to all of a sudden make my brand sustainable for the next 6 months. It's actually going to do not much, right? That's why most of us get brushed off. It's like, okay, cool, but 10,000 people also DM me asking to work together. So your pitch has to be something that makes them recognize like, hey, this actually would do a lot for me, right? I have this product and I'm really just promoting it in a very low budget way, right? Like I'm just kind of reposting content or it's all kind of the same. We'll use a water bottle, for example, where like every picture, it's just the bottle, right? Like you're always seeing the bottle. They didn't get creative at all. We see that. There's no way you don't see that, It's basically, to summarize it, you want to be able to sell one product 10 different ways. That's the goal. How can you amplify the content you create using the exact same product? I actually put a couple slides in my story today that talked about focal lengths, right? It was one shoot, but the variety of content is so maximized because I shot macro real tight on the product, medium length where it kind of shows the product, but it's not fully showing the whole setting. Then there's the pulled out wide version where you're seeing everything in real time and you're seeing the setting, the surroundings, the environment that the athlete's in while they're wearing the product, right? Yes, if you scroll down a bit, you'll see like how to maximize your content. Offering a variety, it doesn't mean you have to do a bunch of shoots. You could offer a wide variety of content within that exact same shoot. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see like that's the first option right there. They're very tight. It's very product focused, right? It's emphasizing what they're really trying to sell, which is the product. You see the detail. And then the next one, it kind of zooms out a bit. So now this is where you bring your subject into it, right? But it's not pulled out all the way. Then the last is that,
wait a second. For those that are gonna listen to this on Spotify, we're on YouTube and he's talking over some of his slides, I guess, or the story that he has. So if you want to see what's happening right now, you can go to the YouTube video and look at it. But if you're listening to it, I apologize. But awesome. Let's keep talking about this because I love it.
Yeah, and so that's your second option right there. So a little bit more pulled out, still shows the product, but now you're seeing a little bit more of what's going on. You're not kind of guessing what the setting is. And then the last one is it entirely. This is where you see the whole 9 yards, right? This is where the setting comes into play, the lighting comes into play. This is where it all comes together. This is where like you as the content creator get to show what you're capable of. Your production, your lighting, your angles, the edit. This is where all of that comes in. So, and this is one shoot, I put a couple, like he's wearing different outfits, same spot, just change the outfit, and I maximize as much as I could, and that brand is able to use that easily like for a whole month because of the variety of content that I offered. You could spread that out and offer a bunch of stuff, right? And that's an example of flat lays right there, where it's very straight to the point. They're showing you the product that they're trying to sell, which is another component that is very important to emphasize, right? Which is just the product by itself. So just in that alone, take a look at how much content that was that took you really not much time. Like, this is where you just getting good at what you do is important. And a sidebar on that, right? Alex and I have talked about this a lot. In my opinion, take it with a grain of salt, I think hourly rates are horrendous. They're absolutely horrendous. My reasoning behind that, and again, this is just my opinion, do with it what you will, is let's say I charge you by the hour and this other guy charges you by the hour, right? So you're a brand, this guy says, $300 for 2 hours, whatever the pricing is. If I'm better than him and I can get that job done in half the time, that means I get paid less. So my value is determined by how much time I put into it, or is it the outcome of the deliverables? So that's why I don't ever charge by hour. I
do half day or full day. That's what I do.
Yeah, and it depends on the scenario, right? So like studio work, for example, I do that same thing, right? I'll give half day or day rates. It really depends on what you're offering. Campaign work specifically, you don't want to get stuck in it. If you're fairly decent at what you do, you don't want to get stuck in a position where you quoted for 6 hours, you got the job done in 3, and now you're trying to figure out what to do with the next 3 hours, or you're going to have to, explain why they paid for 3 extra hours when you didn't use it, right? So I just straight out the gate, I know what I'm going to be happy with getting paid. And if I can get that done in 2 hours instead of 8, it's a win-win. Why do they care how much time you spent on it? They got what they wanted.
Yeah. So but at the same time, the way I like to explain it is, if we do half day, right? Like I'm like, hey, these are my half day rates, which half day is like, I don't know, 4 hours, just to put in perspective. And I get the job done in 2 hours, right? And they're like, well, what are we paying for a full half day? It's because I blocked the half day for you specifically. I could be using those 2 hours shooting for stuff, right? But I did block the whole 4 days, 4 hours for you. That's the way I see it. Same with the full day. If it takes 6 hours or 10 hours, I just book the full day just for that brand specifically. And that's percent like people different things. So when it comes to like family shoots and the other stuff I do on the side, I do hourly or 30 minutes or the full hour, stuff like that. When it comes more to like product stuff or like commercial type of shootings, I do their half day or full day. But I mean, that's just the way I like to do it.
Yeah, I also just it's a selling point for me, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
They feel like they're saving money by just having a flat. Like,
yeah,
if I'm like, hey, this is what my hourly is going to be, they're going to be like, damn, like this is going to add up, right? They're whether it does or not, they're whenever someone's paying, right? Whenever you're giving money, you're very careful with how you spend it. You're already in the thought process of like, how can I not spend as much, right?
Absolutely.
So like, it's another selling point of like, man, like, you don't have to worry about the time. And then again, too, like, again, it's case to case. Like, I work with athletes that are pretty established in their respective industries. They have a time frame, right? I can't use, like, I can't go get Fisa Gaffi to be like, hey, give me 8 hours of your day. She's like, you get 2.5 hours, So like, I have to optimize the time that I'm given and still provide the deliverables within that. So I want to be happy with my outcome. If I charge by hour and an athlete's like, I only have 2 hours to give you, I'm not happy with what that payment is going to be. That's just me. I need a certain amount, period, right? Just as a minimum. So for me, it's like, because I know the reality of it is I have my way of doing things down to where I don't spend a lot of time. Like, it's straight to the point. Anyone that's worked with me knows, like, I'm cordial but efficient. Like, we need to get what needs to get done. Everyone's happy. You go on with your day, I go on with mine. It's a win-win all the way around, but it does vary case to case.
Yeah, I agree with Jonathan. He says that was a really good set of stories. I also like the fact that you're so open about like the way that you do things, and some people can be like protective about their methods of business, right? Like, oh, it obviously works well for you, Some people are like, very protective, like, hey, this is the way I do business. I don't want people to like try to copy me and potentially be a threat. So, and I'm like you, like I don't mind like helping people if they ask me a question, like, that's fine. I don't see it. I don't see anybody as a threat specifically. Um, so yeah, I love that about you. But the main thing whenever you were talking about all this stuff, right? Like you're talking about campaign work, you were doing the flat lays, you're doing the outdoors. I think the hardest part for people or for creators is to actually quoting that, like, right, you're talking about, yes, like, you charge this amount for the, but how do you approach the client with the idea of campaign work? Because not everybody's, as you said, like not every company is used to campaign work. How do you like reach out to, I don't know, Alex owns a company called
Oh, Tomorrow Project.
Tomorrow Project. Imagine that you don't know
It's me.
Alex, right? And you're approaching Tomorrow Project and you're like, hey, listen, I think this is going to be very useful. It's going to be, this whole campaign work. How do you, approach the client?
Yeah. I just I don't want to say it's like good luck or anything, but I kind of have an opening line that piques people's interest, right? Like whether going into it they really care about working with you or not, you kind of want to prep it, like, or prime it rather, where they're like, "What do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? What do you have in mind?" Boom, this is where your pitch comes in, right? Like, just to keep it simple, I'll be something like, "Hey guys, been checking out your brand for a while. Like, I would love to chat with you about working together. I have some ideas I think you'll be interested in." More often than not, and again, personal experience, one of my friends, he does great with emails. Apparently, he gets all his clients with emails. I have never landed a client through emails. It's very impersonal. They're not going to take the time to go look for your portfolio. Like, they're not. It's too much work for someone. You want to make it as easy as possible. Treat them like kids right from the get go, right? Like, put all of it right in front of their face. So I don't have any luck with emails. I never have, but some people do. So I'm not kidding. I cold DMs. I DM brands. It works for me, and I think it's because I pique interest right away. And then when they inquire, right, like, what do you mean? Well, this is where they look at what you've done. So your portfolio or your social media page has to represent what you're pitching. If you're just posting content that you think is cool, but it doesn't actually provide an ROI to a brand, or you talk about campaign work, but it's just all your hype videos, they can't visually understand what it is that you're talking about. Like, they don't. You can say it until you're blue in the face, but they can't grasp it. They don't get what you're saying when you're like campaign work. So that's why even on my page, like, I don't post for engagement. I don't care. I post because I know a brand that I want to pitch later is going to see that, and now they have a visual to what it is that I'm talking about. I know my flat lays don't do well engagement wise. People aren't like, "Oh, that's so sick. It's not going to go viral, bro." Like, that's not. But it's there because when I talk about studio work, they see it without me having to be like, "Oh yeah, this type of," and have to explain it until I'm blue in the face. Like, that sucks. So my portfolio, my social feeds, my website, it plainly demonstrates what it is that I'm pitching right out the gate. And then when that inquiry comes in, right, and we're having this conversation, it's kind of like, well, everyone else is doing it type of thing, right? I'll go and I'll pull up brands that are doing what I'm talking about at a high level, screenshot what it is that I'm talking about as proof, right? The proof's in the pudding. Like, I get that you feel a certain way, but tell me why Nike does this and Adidas does this and Puma does this. They've been doing this for 30 years, right? Like, because it works. People see that. If I'm just talking, I'm telling you something, you don't know me. Why would you trust what I say? So I have to give you examples of it actually working for people. And so when you see a brand like that, they're like, well, shit, they're doing well, right? Like, oh, there has to be something to that. And it looks different than us, and we're not doing as good as them. So, like, maybe there might be something here, right? So this has now opened the door. And so this is where you, as a business owner, have to be able to sell yourself, right? This is the sales component. Know that, like, your value, but the second half of that is articulated. I've come across a lot of people that are really good at what they do. They shoot really well. Horrible people skills. They can't talk at all. They're very boring. They're not warm. They're all sorts of stuff. So they don't really do well because they don't know how to add that part of it's the business etiquette, right? It's just shooting isn't enough. That's a quarter of the deal. Early on in my business, I used to lose a lot of clients. I didn't have a good retention rate because I thought it was just about creating high quality content. They'd be happy and cool. The quality was there, but you have to, more often than not, brands have insecurities that come up regularly. And you have to be okay with putting out those fires regularly, right? All of a sudden, like, hey, I think we're going to change this in our budget, or we're going to start cutting this down. You got to be able to know how to put out that fire so you can lose some money, right? So I check in with them constantly. Hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, how's your day? I'm constantly in their ear so they don't forget. I'm giving them ideas, not the other way around, right? I don't want them to have to figure everything out for me. They should just pay and know that everything is taken care of. Every brand wants that. This is why it works. They want just the whole media side of it to be taken out of their hands because they got other things to do, like running a business.
Yeah, absolutely. What you said, it's so true. You want to make it as easy as possible for them and literally talk to them like they're babies whenever you're like explaining some things, because like you said, they're business owners and they're focused on other things. So if you make it very, direct, like, hey, this is what I'm gonna do, this your ROI, like, like the expectations, everything, it's, you just want to like get them. I don't even know how to explain it. Like, it just, and I see it when I talk to clients too. That's the way like I approach things. I just try not to make it super complicated to a point that they're gonna be like, "What is he talking about? Like, I don't understand half the things he's saying. What's this?" Like, no, like, if you're like, "Hey, this is what you're gonna get. This is the time frame that you're gonna get it, and these are the expectations." Cool, that's it.
Go to Target and go to any department, right? Go to cosmetics, go to the arts and crafts, right? Stationery. Start looking at the products. There's no new products there. There's no crazy patent that they came up with. It's just, stationery. It's a bunch of different types of pens. But each one of those brands has some crazy way of marketing that product. You're like, wow, I'm sold. It glitters a little more, or it has some sort of wave to it, or it writes it. It's all nonsense. It doesn't actually do a bunch of different than the other one does. But the think tank behind what went into that is genius. They know what it is that you're looking for when you go there. And so they know how to just sell you, right? That's the whole business of e-commerce, is how do I sell you without being in front of you? Because that is the reality of it. Like, how many times do I actually get to sell my product in person? Slim to none, because when you have, a brand that is relying on booths at an event, well, you have about 3 of those a year. What are you going to do for the remainder of the time? You have to learn how to sell it when someone isn't in front of the product, right? Where they can't try it on, where they can't get you. They're not going to send you it, check it out, be like, actually, never mind, send it back. That's not how it works. So you got to sell them with something. It's the same thing with us, right? Your content can't be the only thing. You can't just be like, see, look, I'm good at what I do. This is why you should hire me. No, there's more to it. You definitely have to add value, or else it's really hard for them to differentiate you from the thousands of other people that have a very similar portfolio as you. I know that I'm replaceable. There are millions of content creators doing what I do that are better than me. There's a lot of people I look up to, and I'm like, man, like, they are phenomenal. So I have to find a way to make what I do different, right? Whether it's how I pitch it, or how it looks, or how my feed look, whatever it is, I have to find a way to look different or sound different, or a brand's going to struggle to just pick one, right? Like, there's so many options. What makes you any better? And why should I charge you the rate that you actually want to charge, right? Instead of this guy who wants to charge $1,000 on a retainer, why should I pay you, Alex, $4,000 a month on retainer? Well, this is why. That's the dividing line right there. You have to be able to sell it better.
Yeah. And what would you recommend? First of all, Alex Sroka is very like loving this. I can tell like by his expression. He's like, "Oh, baby, like it's game,
Well,
it's
the
game
reason
time
is
now. I'm gonna start reaching out to clients, and I already know what to
I'm
do."
firing off DMs while I'm sitting here.
Yeah. Every time you like when you drop like a knowledge bomb, Alex goes like, "Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
yeah." But
I'll just say real quickly that it's funny that you bring up Tomorrow Project, Carlos and Christian, because ironically, Christian and I have had a couple of conversations about working together in that capacity to help tell our story. And that's the thing I think holistically is a theme. We're so into like, and there's a time and a place for like hype reels and snapshot of content, but it's that emotion that, Christian talks about with like Noble, and you kind of have that as part of like the brand, and that's what draws people to it. And that's what we have at Tomorrow Project. We have a mission. Sorry, my dog is scratching. We have a mission to generate awareness about suicide prevention. And, the problem there is that we don't know how to tell that story. That's the issue. And so somebody like Christian can help us.
Yeah.
Carlos, like, you guys can help us do that. Otherwise, we're never going to make a difference. We're never going to grow at the rate we want, because then we're just a t-shirt company that has some cool designs, but nobody understands the mission that we have. So,
Well, and we all understand what value is. Like, for me personally, I have outsourced a lot of stuff or had people shoot things that like someone would be like, why can't you just shoot that yourself? It's different. Like it's just different. I know that this person's good at what they do, and like I'm gonna get that guy because like this is what I need, right? Like I'm not gonna like BS it. Like we see that. It's just it's hard to get other people to understand that component, right? Like dude, event space, like for me, like I wouldn't be like, yo, Florez Media is the guy you want to hire. I would think of you two immediately, like right away, because you guys capitalize on that. Like the way that I shoot, it's more fixated on campaign or storytelling than it is like hype. I'm not like a hype guy, right? I don't operate like that. So I was for me, if I had a brand I needed to push and I had a camera, I still wouldn't use myself. I would just outsource it to someone that is a lot more effective and efficient in that,
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people listening are gonna have a couple of questions. First is, somebody that's pretty new in the industry and they don't have any campaign work portfolio, right? Like somebody that's like, hey, like I've shot a couple of events. How do you like reach out to a client without having a specific portfolio? And the other question is, how do you learn how to take like the flat lays and using lighting and stuff, because obviously that's super important, and just like just pretty much scheduling the shoot with the client and all. I mean, just pretty much, if you're new at it, like how can you explain it to somebody?
Yeah. A lot of people have different approaches for how they kind of get set up. I'm just going to give you my secret because I don't really care. Like
The secret.
it just was like what I did was and this is fitness. I don't know about every other industry, but it works really well in fitness. If I'm going to pitch brands in the fitness space, I know brands need athletes. So early on, I didn't go after the brands. I went after the athletes. I built my portfolio reaching out to the people that are moving and just said, hey, like, let's shoot together. Let's create some stuff. And I started creating my resume and portfolio by working with athletes and giving them content for their feeds because they want it. And it right off the bat, if you have connections, networks, or whatever, even if they don't have a big following, you've now opened up networks for yourself, right? Because they're going to post the content that you're using. And so I do that a lot. I more often than not, I develop relationships with athletes that are like, I'm sponsored by so and so, and I'm kind of tired of posting content for my sponsor from my phone. Like it's like they are also professionals, and it bothers them. Like I really think this is a general consensus with professional athletes. If you ask them, like they don't like to post sponsored content that's been shot on their iPhone. Like they would prefer to have professional media because it's a reflection of their brand personally. So that's what I would do. That's what I did. I reached out to a lot of athletes, and I started just offering content, whether it's free, whether it's $50, $100, if you're new, if you just need your gas covered, like there's humble beginnings, and I totally understand that. I did it, right? I did free shoots for almost 2 years easily. And there was some paid stuff in between that, but man, like I paid my dues without having any sort of financial, return on that. But I was able to build a portfolio. You can't pitch without showing product, period,
Yeah.
and so that's super important. Now, like, again, like your approach can be different. The industry it all depends on the industry you're working in. But again, like brands, if you don't have that portfolio to show, brands aren't going to consider you. They're just not going to give you the time of day. What I will say is don't focus on followings. As you can tell, like I'm not like in the K's, right? Like I don't think brands pay attention to followings when it comes to deliverables. They just know what they need. Some of the best people that have mentored me and have kind of discipled me in this industry are people you probably don't know about. They're not like YouTubers. They don't have big followings, but they're some of the best creators I've ever seen in my life. Their knowledge overall is phenomenal. So don't get caught up on like, this isn't going viral, this isn't getting engagement. It's your intentionality matters. And for me, I'm not on social for engagement. It's just a digital portfolio for me. I don't really care how it performs. I just need to show proof of pudding.
Yeah, 100%. I always wonder that if clients care that much about followers or not, because obviously if you jump on a page that has 150,000 followers, clients might be like, whoa, like why? Like, what is this person doing that everybody else is not doing? And I feel like some of them don't understand that it's just all about like like we know how to get 100,000 followers like nowadays, right? Like it's the the formula is there. Like we know exactly like what to do. But at
It's
the same
obvious.
time, it's like what we are talking about in some of the past episodes. Like it's gonna be 150,000 followers, and 149,000 followers out of those 150 followers are followers that don't really care about you, that they don't know who you are. They don't have any interest in knowing who you are as a creator, as a person. They just want to see the person that you posted on the story. And like the algorithms now with the reels and all that, like it's just gonna get more people to watch your stuff and to follow you. So I mean, me personally, I don't think it's worth it, because it also seems like weird whenever somebody has that many followers. um but again, some people don't even like try, and they just get that amount of followers, and they're like, oh gosh, like how did this happen?
It
Right, they
happens
just
so frequently, man. I had so many.
yeah.
I mean, Alex, like that was
Yeah.
you're just floodgates for you.
Yeah. But
Um,
I'll tell you, it does not lead to opportunities. That it's not always directly correlated. And um, I always assume, like, to Carlos's math there, like I'm saying under 10,000 followers of mine are probably like true people who really care about what, like, the essence of what I'm doing. Everybody else just maybe a fan of CrossFit, or they're a bot, or they like to see the CrossFit girls I post. Like, I'm just going
Yeah,
to be honest with you. Like, I'll just say it. That's primarily a reason that a lot of people in our space is because they're posting women and that are scantily dressed working out, and they're very fit people. And there's nothing wrong with being a fit female. That's not the point. It's just that there are creators who know that sex sells, and if they post all that stuff, they'll get the gratifying feeling of having hundreds of thousands of followers or thousands of followers. I say good for you, but I've never thanked the CrossFit community for the number of followers that I have, because to me, there's people that have less than 1,000 followers who are probably some of the best editors, content creators I've ever seen. What is it? I am Childfire is one I think of. I mean, go to his Instagram. His stuff is amazing, and people don't even know who he is, but
right.
he makes probably 50x what I make, and his stuff is legit. So it's all a big facade. I'm not going to sit here and say like,
I
oh,
think his name is Levi, right?
yeah. That was just his handle. Yeah, I mean, it took me a while to figure it out, though. Just be
Oh,
honest.
there you go,
Look at
right
this
there.
stuff.
Yeah, I've never even seen that guy.
Oh, it's his stuff
Yeah, he
is
makes some stuff for Fit Aid. I mean, you have to like listen.
it's
Can you hear that?
no. I don't know
No.
if it doesn't pass through, but it's
Yeah,
so
you
good.
have
Like,
to see like the edits. It's pretty sick. He works a lot with Preston Smith and Mayfield, all those guys. I think he shoots too, but I know he's the one that edits
yeah.
all that stuff.
And like, if you
And yeah,
just
like you said, like he has, let's see,
how many?
oh, you cannot see. Oh, there it is.
Five.
5,000 followers, and it's somebody that it's,
It's so crispy.
way better at editing than any
Yeah,
of us, right?
that stuff is so
And
good.
somebody that's a lot more established, and
Mhm.
and that's what I said. Like it doesn't really matter, because he gets jobs that paid, a lot of money, and
Yeah,
no clients like, oh, let me go to his Instagram. Oh no, he has 5,000 followers, and
yeah,
this other person has 25,000 followers. It's
Yeah,
and I
this.
know I know a lot of people. There is a guy here in town actually, um, Matt Matt something, I forgot. And one of my friends like, hey, have you seen his work? I'm like, no, I've never heard. I don't know who he is. And then I see his clients, and I'm like, dude, what? And he has like 1,000 followers, and he's working with like NBA dudes, like NFL. He's doing like really cool stuff. Let me see if I find him. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
it's
it
amazing.
it does not translate into into making more money.
Yeah, no, it's wild, and I think that's almost like unique in a way. It's almost unique to CrossFit. There's a lot of content creators that I know of, like in Chicago or just elsewhere around the country, that don't have massive followings on Instagram, but they're some of the like most successful people. Look at
I
this.
found him here. His name is Matthew Coughlin. Yeah, he's from Pensacola, and I mean, he works with huge
Oh, shit.
brands.
Oakley,
Yeah,
Holmes, oh, Bose.
Mahomes. Yeah.
Dang,
Russell Wilson. Look,
that's so cool.
right? And I mean, Francisco Lindor. And look, where is it? 3,000 followers, right?
That's crazy.
I'm still tripping on Levi.
It's yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
can't believe you haven't seen his stuff.
That's insane.
yeah, his stuff is
That's
great.
Yeah,
insane.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let me see what are our topics that we were gonna talk about. But yeah, dude, I mean, this is definitely something that it can help a lot of people to understand. Like, you do not have to have over 50 or even 10,000 followers to land huge clients. It's
But brand,
about
it is funny though, because there are at times there are brands that look for that. Like I think it's more on the athlete side though, if I'm being honest. Like, oh, you have to have 10,000 followers as an athlete before we're gonna like seriously consider you to, sponsor you or whatever, because they're looking for the reach. I just wonder how much brands do a deep dive into those followings to say like, okay, what is the makeup of your audience? Like,
yeah,
if you're a female, for instance, I would venture to guess that a huge number of your followers, probably more than half, could be men. And if you're selling like a female product, female apparel, or something that's targeted towards females, like you're really only hitting maybe 30 or 40% of that total number. Everybody else, I mean, yeah, people may have spouses and girlfriends they would shop for too, or things like that, but it's just nobody really drives into it. They just see this big number and they're like, oh, they must be popular, they must have reach, they must have influence. But there's so
yeah,
much more to the metrics. So
yeah. Christian, I want to know your opinion about this topic. I was talking to Alex and Carly the other day about this. That now obviously like Instagram is pushing reels. So there's a lot of people are very into like, like I need followers, I need likes, and I know reels is what's gonna give you likes. But they've never done video in the past ever. They're really good photographers. I'm talking about like really good photographers that I see stuff and I'm like, yes, I love this. And now you see them posting video stuff that is not good, obviously, because it's not their thing. And I was talking to Alex, I'm like, dude, I see these videos and I feel nothing. I literally see it and there is nothing. And it's a longer video. Like there's a lot more stuff happening than a photo. And then that same person posts a photo the day after. And I'm like, yes, I love this. Like I get some like, like a much more of a story out of just one still that is very well composed, that I know what he's doing, or like a random 15-second video that, like that person's running, lifting, doing this, that. I'm like, I feel nothing out of this. And I just feel like it's just people getting stuck in like, I know that's gonna give me likes and followers. And I was talking to Alex, and I was like, dude, it's okay just to be a photographer or a videographer. If
mhm.
that's if you only do video, you don't have to be a photographer too. If you only do photos, if you're a photographer, you don't have to be a videographer too. There's people are very good at both. We know a lot of them that are very good at both, but it shouldn't be a thing that you're like, oh, I have to, do both, right?
Yeah, straight up, you really only see that in CrossFit.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, you're
it's,
right. Yeah.
I
You're
just,
right.
I don't know any cinematographers outside of CrossFit that could give a rat's ass about
Yeah.
followers.
And most of the cinematographers that do photos, it's mostly like film stuff, like very creative, that they just want to like, you know,
Well, here's the thing.
really cool stuff. But it's not like you're saying, it's not like actually getting into photography.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Like it depends on who you're working with, what the deliverables are. For me, like I started off as a photographer, and then I realized early on video was where the cash cow was. So cinematography became my main emphasis. I've always still curated the photography side of things, but it's always for me. It's always in addition to, like photography is always in addition to the package. I don't. I haven't had too many experiences with clients where they just want photo. That's just me. Maybe it's who I'm talking to, who I'm reaching out to, but the video. This is where like this is the gray area. Like yes, people are making reels and stuff, but it's not just about making reels. It's offering video that's going to translate, right? Like you can post reels, but there's a way of doing it to still give give the brand what they're looking for and not just do something for engagement. Ramwad does this really well, right? Uh, like Brandon's reels are really good at kind of like creating hype around it. I don't see reels as anything but that.
Go
I
what?
don't really know how you would
Yeah, go on.
push a
Right.
product outside of, creating a hype in real format. Like reels for me are I only see them as like hype. They're meant to just kind of get your attention real quick, kind of push something fast, keep your attention for a millisecond, and then boom, on to the next swipe, right? Same thing as like YouTube Shorts. You're not like Peter McKinnon did a whole video on this just recently about how like YouTube Shorts, you actually do worse if it's better quality.
Oh
Like,
yeah, I watched that.
yeah, because people are like they're conditioned to just scroll, 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 right? So if you're trying to like really push the whole campaign component in a real setting, it's not going to work out for you.
Mm.
And so I think people are getting stuck there. They're like, well, Reels is what's working. Well,
Yeah.
what do you mean by working? You're getting numbers, but
Yeah.
are you still broke?
Dude, honestly, since the whole thing with the reels started happening, like people getting followers and stuff, it's just been such a like an eye-opening experience for me. Like I'm starting to understand better like the things that make me happy or things that I was doing just to get followers and likes. And talking about Peter McKinnon, he started talking about like the issues with Instagram, right? And how now there's apps like the Vero app. Dude, I feel it's just so satisfying uh, to me to post something on Vero because it's like I'm just posting shit that I love, and I'm like I can't wait to post it. Of course, I'm getting only like 20 to 30 likes because like nobody really follows me there, but I don't care. It just feels so much better to post that because I'm like so excited to like post it and like show something different that I haven't posted compared to I don't know a couple of months ago or last year that I was posting some CrossFit stuff because I knew I was gonna get a certain amount of likes and followers. At that point, I wasn't. I don't know. It's like
Well, they're not putting
it's
creatives
like an
on.
eye-opening experience for me. Like I know like things that make me like more passionate, like things that are more passionate about, or than that, you know.
Yeah, they're not. The reason why the app is working so well is because creatives aren't being put in a box. Like the quality of video, the fact that Instagram never up to their quality for video, it's crap. I'll tell like just crap. The fact that video is so compressed on Instagram is crap. That's why Vero is crushing that. Not only that, they still have the rotational component, so you can rotate your screen to see videos in full format. You can rotate landscape photos to see landscape in
Hmm.
full format. I mean, it's all customizable. They tailor to every type of content that you want to post, so you can show your full arsenal as a creative. On Instagram, all you can show is reels if you want attention. Just reels, 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 and it's conditioning people to think it's the same thing that happens to like athletes. When I was living in Cali, I was close friends with a lot of pro surfers who were women, and they would talk about this like the industry based off of the content that they posted was very promiscuous, like half naked stuff, and so it was teaching the young girl surfers that in order to be a professional surfer, they had to also look like this and do X, Y, and Z. They had to post this kind of content. And so that's what Instagram's doing in the same sense. Like it's telling people like, this is all that matters. This is all you can do, or we're going to kick it to the wayside. And people get caught in that loop of thinking like, yeah, they're right. It is going to, but they're not looking at the whole picture. Like engagement, just because you're not getting engagement doesn't mean your content's being kicked to the loop. You still have a portfolio.
Yeah.
It still translates and it's still there to sell, right? Like you can still use that to make money.
Yeah. And I've also realized that some of the creators that I look up to the most, that I know they're like super passionate about their craft and like their photography and stuff, they just haven't changed the way they post it. But they just keep posting stuff they just like and something that makes them feel something and like they love showing the world like, hey, this is what I do, right? And they haven't changed it because it's true passion for the stuff they do and they love what they do and they haven't like adapt to like the reels and stuff like that because there's a bigger purpose for them than oh I want to get followers and likes. And at the
Yeah.
same time, I mean, let's be honest, like it's tough sometimes. Like everybody loves whenever you get a couple of extra thousand followers, you're like, oh cool, but then
They
you
know
think
that.
about it and then
Instagram knows that.
yeah, but then oh, of course they know it, but then you're like, wait, all these thousand followers that I got, it's just random people that they just they think I'm the athlete sometimes, right? So it's like
I can't, me personally, it's hard for me to relate to that because it's just never been my thing to do that. Like I don't like to do trends because I know they're not sustainable. If you put all your eggs in one basket and trends is what you follow, trends change. They're temporary. So then you got to jump on another bandwagon and then another and another and another. And so like I'm big on constants, right? Things that are consistent, things that sell. Again, like big companies. You don't see them jumping on any sort of trends. They might post a couple of reels here and there, but they're set in how they do things and they don't budge. Like they just won't start doing. And if they do, it's still it's in a way that is still their style, right? Like when I started posting, like really what pissed me off is when they stopped allowing you to rotate your phone, right? They're like, we really want to push reels this way. So, you know, what did me and a bunch of other people started doing? We started posting our videos.
You can't do that anymore?
You can't. Yeah, you haven't been able to rotate your phone in so long.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so like it's like,
Is
all right,
IGTV still around?
No, that's been gone for a long time.
They killed that.
Now
Yeah.
it's just
They killed IGTV because they couldn't monetize it. And then, you know, with Reels, again, like it was any of your landscape videos, they would just have black on top, black on bottom. You couldn't rotate your screen anymore, which I thought was a load of BS. So then we just started posting our videos.
You're right. You cannot rotate it. Oh my
Yeah, you
God.
can't rotate. It's clearly there's an agenda there. So
That's
I
crazy.
post my landscape videos now in a dimension that allows it to be sideways, and then you have to just turn your phone to watch it in full screen. Because like I just can't, like I can't get behind that. It's crap. You have to take a landscape video, cut it to this. Yeah, it just defeats the whole point of what I shot. Like all I'm seeing is like eyeballs and just like it's everything's so tight. It just doesn't work for me. Like I just can't get behind it.
Yeah,
I like
Carly says literally there's nothing more satisfying than receiving messages from people that actually are impacted by your work in comparison to an empty follow. The app is literally for connection. And I mean 100% agree.
I was
And
at
that's dude, I mean honestly literally since the whole Reels thing started happening, that's when I kind of, like I said, it's just kind of like, dude, that's crazy how people can just be influenced so easily by, you know, like, oh, you're going to get full this way, but it doesn't feel the same. Like Carly's saying, like when you get a message from somebody being like, yo, I love that you posted this and how you, in many ways you were able to help me, or like podcast too. I love when people message me and like, yo, like that podcast that you did with Christian the other day was freaking awesome. I reached out to a client and I don't know, I got a campaign work like gig. Super excited and thank you so much for what you do, dude. It blows everything else out of the water. Like when I went to the CrossFit Games and people I've never seen before, they're like, hey, you don't know me, but I just wanted to let you know that I love the podcast. I've learned so much. Thank you for what you did. That feeling, it's not like it can't compare it to getting followers that are gonna do nothing for you.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And again, I think it's like at the end of the day, we're responsible. Like the reason why Instagram is doing that is because TikTok's success rate. And why is TikTok successful? Because everyone's buying into it. Like they want quick content and mindless content and content that really, once you're done watching it, for me, I just like it doesn't do anything for me. So, but it's working, right? Like people are getting stuck in that loop, and then Instagram's like, well, they're killing us, so we're going to do what they're doing. Yeah. And I think Instagram is just like a different platform. The people that are on there are different.
Yeah. So and that's how people got involved in Instagram, not because they wanted to post dancing videos, TikTok style. That's why TikTok's TikTok, Instagram is Instagram, right? So that's why people are so upset with the fact that, like, you know, Instagram used to be a page that you will post the photos that you like, and like, I don't know, you can like show what you're doing in the stories, which is cool. But now it's just about like, oh, look what this filter does to your face. It makes you beautiful. And then the filter, and then you see your feed full of like those stories of people dancing and stuff. You're like, what is this? It just completely changed.
It's a different demographic. People
it's funny because,
good.
No, sorry, just to say Mark Zuckerberg came out I want to say like in the last couple of days and said that people should be prioritizing connection over content on social media. And I'm like, okay, well, you're this, you know, they're your companies, make them more conducive for connection and less about putting people in content boxes. Like, you know?
Yeah. And again, it's a different demographic. Like Instagram, the people that like photos, like, are people that appreciate artistry, right? That's the reason why they look at photos. People that like mindless content are drawn to a different demographic. They're drawn to a different platform. You can't always have a crossover. This is why there is no lashing out on TikTok. No one's like upset about what TikTok's doing, because TikTok is a specific demographic. It's that younger generation that has been sold by the world and the new way of doing marketing. Instagram is people who care about the artistry. So they want their photos like to a TikToker, they don't care about that car in Utah with a beautiful mountain like range landscape. To us, we're like, that is so gangster, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's because we care about the artistry behind it. When you try to have a crossover there, it's gonna implode. I mean, Instagram had to roll back a lot of the things they were rolling out because so many people were mad about it.
Yeah.
And like, you don't try and fail, then you never learn. It's like, buddy, like this wasn't old news. Like they were really trying to push an agenda there.
Yeah. Have you scrolled through the Vero app? It's freaking dope. Like
Oh,
you just click a hashtag, like, I don't know, photography or black and white. Do you see so many cool shit?
Everything
Like
about
it's really cool.
is so cool. Even the fact
Yeah.
that your profile picture is so big.
Oh, true.
Like,
Yeah.
I love that. Like
And I understand like
It's so inspiring.
the connection part of it. It's harder because like, you know, Instagram is like simpler to use. That's something that I was talking to Alex about. And in reality, you're not gonna get clients of Vero because it's like your clients are not there, right? Like they're
Right
not a
now,
part of the
yeah.
app right now. Yeah. But it's dope, dude. Like I'm really enjoying just posting stuff there and like checking other people's stuff. And it's more like what Instagram used to do. So if you want to follow me on Vero, it's adbound, nothing else. Just
Shameless plug.
BOWN
Did you change
adbound.
your username again?
It's always been adbound.
Oh, okay.
What's yours, Sroka? So we can plug our.
It's just at Sroka Poke, SROKAPOKE.
Oh, and they have a like a desktop version too.
Is it
Yeah.
better than Instagram's?
Oh, way better.
Yeah, Instagram doesn't have a desktop version or iPad version.
Yeah.
I'll have to look it up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Christian, anything else you want to add on to what we've been talking about? We've been on for 1 hour and 30 minutes. Anybody that's listening, you have any questions for for Christian, Alex, or myself, just let us know in the comments.
Yeah, I think like just to really summarize the takeaways, is like prioritize your artistry and like study your craft, man. Like I know I know us three, like the fact that I can talk about a YouTube video and you two have also seen it tells you like we study. Like this is like school for me. Like I'm never sitting empty handed. Like if I want to be like my current goal is like be able to apply colorist to my bio. So like I'm in coloring courses, I'm studying colorists, like I'm looking at what they're doing in DaVinci. Like this is daily for me, right? Because I'm trying to there's a caliber of people that I want to work with and I don't ever want to go down again. Like I don't want to I have friends that are like charging prices that makes me uncomfortable and they're like I don't get anything lower than that. I like they set standards, right? And so if that's something that you want, which I'm assuming most people that pick up a camera for business, you want to be self-sufficient from using a camera, then there's things you got to do. You have to pay your dues. You got to put in the work, and pay attention to what people are doing, right? Like study your craft. Don't just start shooting content and start pitching clients. You're going to look real rookie, real amateur, real fast. You're going to fall on your face. Like you got to study everything there is when it comes to your industry. That doesn't mean study shooting. That's obvious. Study business etiquette, right? Like study the things on the back end that are actually going to allow you to secure a client and retain them, right? What does it mean to retain a client? I only operate really on retainers. I have one-offs, but more often than not, I have retainer clients every month on contract. I know and I can expect my income to be a certain amount, for the next 6 months to a year, just because I have a family to support and like I can't afford to have things up in the air every month, So like just start studying the business etiquette side of things and get real knowledgeable there. It's going to show. It shows over time. And then we have conversations like this, right? The only reason why we're able to do this is because we've put in the time and we've fallen on our face plenty of times. I know how I have,
Absolutely. Alex, anything else you want to add?
No, just I think for me, it's I told Christian this actually earlier today when I was on the phone with him. I was like, yeah, I've entered this point in my life, and not just in the area of content creation, where I feel really aware of like the things I need to work on, whether it's at a personal level or the things I need to get better at in a content creation fashion. And I'm just super thankful for like the network of people, both of you and people that watch this podcast and people I talk to offline, because growth is a necessary part of life. And, I felt incredibly blessed lately, As you guys know, I posted on my own Instagram about wanting to get out of the, the wheel that everybody else is running on, and wanting to post stuff that I enjoy. And I've kind of taken a step back. I think I've only posted maybe 2 times since then. And typically I was posting like almost every day. So I'm just trying to kind of reorient and figure out and do some growing in other areas. But at the end of the day, always thankful for people like yourselves who, push me and offer your time and guidance. So
I appreciate you, bro.
Yeah.
Christian, thank you so much for all the knowledge bumps. I feel like you are the perfect person when it comes to talking about all this stuff, right? Like you're the one of those guests that can just say so much of like your experience, and like you're so good at like the business part of it, like talking to clients, also expressing your feelings, and letting people know like, hey, this what is worked for me, these are things that have not worked for me. Like you're very direct, and also you're not scared of like telling your secrets, like we call them like secrets, where there's not really like
Right.
a secret, but you are very you like to share stuff and help people, which is it's freaking awesome. So I really appreciate your time here. I mean, we've been on for an hour and 35 minutes, and I'm sure if I ask you for another 30 minutes, you'll be down to do it. We have to, we
Yep.
have stuff to do, but no, for real, dude, I really appreciate it. And I hope everybody that's listening, it's getting a lot of information, and, just learning new things. And if you have, just make sure you can DM Christian at Florez Media or Alex or myself, and just let us know like, hey, I really like the episode. Those are the things that just kind of like push us and motivate us to like do more of this stuff. Once we get feedback, it's like, okay, like people are getting something back, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, if
One
you
last
like the
thing.
episode, let us know.
One last thing. If
Yep.
you're a content creator, pretty well established, and people reach out to you, don't be a dick. We find out about this stuff. I have people DM me like, hey, I tried to contact this person and they were so short. They didn't want to give blah, blah, blah. That stuff we remember, like the people that didn't help. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
get rid of that scarcity mindset. Help out. I'll tell you, at least from my personal experience, my business never took a hit from that. If anything, it helped, because
Yeah.
then I get referred, right? People consider me because of the integrity component.
Yeah.
So if someone reaches out to you, help them out. That's
Yeah.
vital.
Dude, and that you're talking about that. One of the episodes that I had with Torrin Simpson, he mentioned something like that, and it's one of the things that it's been on my mind. He's like, he said something like, if you have the opportunity to help somebody grow, to like teach something to somebody, just make sure you do it. Like, pay it forward, because at some point you were that person that wanted help from somebody that's so much more established, right? Why would you be the person that once you get to a point that you're so successful and like you're accomplishing your goals, why you want to be the person now that you don't want to give back to somebody else that was that it's at the spot that you were a couple of years ago, right? It's just such a like selfish way to see it. And I get it. Some people are like, more defensive. Some people are just not very good at like sharing their stuff, or they just they're not that personable. Whatever, it's fine. But if you have the opportunity, I will say, try to help somebody, right? Like, it's, as you said, it's not, you're not going to take a hit. If that person gets a job instead of you, it's probably because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. That person might be doing a better job than you, right? So don't see it as a threat, just see it as an opportunity to help somebody.
Yep.
All right. Well, everybody that was listening, thank you so much. I see in the comments we have CB, which I don't know who CB is, but thanks for saying that the episode was banging. Desmond always in the podcast, on the live feed. Jonathan, Carly, bunch of cool people. We have Dalton Clark. We have JC Reese. So everybody, thank you so much for listening to us. And again, if you want to contact Christian, you can contact him at Florez Media. If you want to contact Alex, at Shots by Sroka, spelled Sroka. And my Instagram handle is at Bound Media. If you like the episode, like it, subscribe to the channel, do whatever you have to do, share, because it helps a lot. It really helps us a lot once you share it to somebody. So just saying, you should. And you should also thank Christian for all the knowledge bombs he dropped today.
Appreciate y'all.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one. And I'm gonna try to another episode this week. I don't know yet, but I'm gonna try to make it happen. So
sweet.
See you guys. Thanks.